Hate crimes against queer people in Germany are rising to record levels. And that's despite Germany having among the strongest LGBTQ protections in Europe. For the International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, Interphobia and Transphobia, I'm talking to MP Sebastian Roloff to ask what the government is or isn't doing to protect the community. Welcome, Mr. Roloff. You're deputy spokesperson for queer issues for the SPD, one of the governing parties. Hate crimes against queer people in Germany have almost tenfolded since 2010 in Germany. What's going wrong?
I guess there's a general shift of the mood in Germany where the climate in general becomes rougher and we are facing a real rise of the right, meaning like the right-wing extremist party who has tremendous successes over the whole of the country, but especially in the eastern part. And that's something which is poisoning the climate in the political discussion, especially as they are very obviously against rights of minorities. That, of course, includes queer people on a very early stage, and that's something we really have to deal with now.
Compared to other European countries, Germany still has pretty strong laws protecting the LGBTQ plus community. What sets German laws apart here?
The thing is, Social Democrats said we would just be joining this government if the major successes we had in the last government, the one with Greens and Liberals, who really did amazing steps forward as far as the situation of LGBTIQ plus people is concerned, if there's no rollback in these issues. And that's something which was possible to agree with the Conservatives. So I guess, and I'm afraid, we will just make single issue progress as far as equal rights are concerned in this government, but we will be able to defend every step forward which has been taken in the past, and that's a message of its own.
It's interesting that you mention the past government, because of course you've been part of, like, the SPD has been part of the past government, and you've passed the first, or the last government has passed the first or the only national action plan for queer rights. That was queer Leben in English. That would be living queer. But this plan specifically is not being continued, as we've heard now. It's sort of, you could say that it's been pretty much slowly, silently discontinued, because the government has only upon request said that it's being discontinued. What happened there? Who's responsible? And is it not needed anymore?
It is for sure needed, especially if you ask the Social Democrats, and that's why that's an ongoing discussion, an ongoing fight, if I may say so. That's a phenomenon I just mentioned. So we won't be making big progress, but we are willing to defend and are about to defend every progress which has been reached in the past. That includes this plan, of course. And the thing is, if you ask for the fault, which you, or whose fault it is, which you frankly did, as a Conservative minister who would have to implement it and would have to continue it. And so she has to answer questions why she doesn't see the necessity anymore. We are raising that issue with her. And especially as we have the situation that several states in Germany implemented their own action plan now, that includes conservative-run states, by the way, I guess it will be possible to make some progress on that, because that's something you cannot really argue about, like the necessity of this plan. And so the last word is not spoken yet, as we would say in German, on this issue. But it's annoying that we have to discuss it on that level, yes.
So Helmut Metzner, he's an FDP politician. He was attacked in Berlin, in a Berlin park with his partner last week. He's a politician and he went public with his story, which, as experts say, most people don't. So what does that tell you about the state of, like, queer people in Germany and how safe queer people can feel in this country?
Well, the climate of the society and especially of the political discussion is very rough. It's really decreasing on several levels, to an extent where you see that offenses like these, even if they are physical or just inverted commas verbally, are on the rise again. Police reports are stating that as well. So we obviously don't make progress as far as the safety queer people can feel in Germany is concerned. We are internationally compared still on a comparably good level as far as the security is concerned, but every incident is one incident too much, and we cannot accept that this situation is getting worse. And that's why we really have to defend the progress which has already been made. We made tremendous steps in society, especially regarding the last 20 years, for example, not just the last government period, but that's something which is threatened now, especially by the rise of the right and its effects.
Let's look into the data a little bit. What kind of violence are we seeing against the LGBTQ community? What is most prevalent?
The thing is, we mostly see verbal and physical abuse, which is queer-related, which are queer-related issues. You cannot really be satisfied with the data material the police are raising in these matters that not just concerns queer issues. If you have anti-Semite or right-wing extremist motivated deeds, it's not in every case reported as an incident with that motivation in the background. And that's why we cannot really, from my perspective, cannot really rely on this material. So I guess the situation is actually even worse, but not in every case. When it's a queer-related incident, it's reported as that or is in the files as that, but just as something physical or something verbally. But that's the situation we're facing, and we have to do something against, and we have to do more against that.
Who are the perpetrators of hate crimes? You've mentioned the far right now as well. Is that the key demographic that commits violence against the queer community? What does the data tell us?
The right of the far-wing extremists leads to a way worse political climate, and queer, even visibility or equal queer rights are something which are generally attacked by the far right on a very high political level, and of course on the lower local levels as well. That's something they make fun of, they do not take for serious, and these are offenses they are obviously briding in the political discussion, and that leads to a climate where it's more hostile towards gay people and queer people, and that's a problem who we have to deal with. And I don't say, of course, that the people who are represented in these extremist parties or in the one big extremist party commit these incidents. That's not what I'm saying, but that their words and statements lead to a climate where it is way more hostile towards LGBTIQ plus people, and that's something which is not acceptable.
So what tangible things is this government doing? Like, what could you name some examples? What exactly is the government and is the SPD doing to reduce the numbers of hate crimes against LGBTQ people and to protect them better in Germany?
Well, for a start, we would need the data material, which hate crimes are actually because of the queer background of the victims. That's a discussion we just had, and where we struggle to make progress with the conservative ministers in charge. It's of course relevant that the government and all of its members condemn these kind of violence and these kind of incidents, which happens. And the thing is, we need to have a broad consensus in a democratic center of the country that we need to have equal rights for LGBTIQ plus people, and everything which offends that and them is not acceptable.
Do we have that broad consensus in the democratic middle?
To a certain extent, yes. To the extent that everybody is free to live however they want. I would say that that's something where the Conservatives would agree. We don't have a consensus as far as really equal rights are concerned. We don't have that to the needed extent in Germany, even if we made amazing progress in the last years. That's something where more the center and the left part of the democratic spectrum agree on. So I guess the Conservatives still have some way to go on that. And as I said, the situation is from that perspective even worse, that we really have to make more in defense of these rights, apart from making progress in increasing them.
Did you feel like you were expecting more from the Conservatives at the start of this government? And were you disappointed in what they've been like pretty much blocking when it comes to safety for queer people?
I actually didn't accept more. They ran their election campaign on sometimes problematic issues as far as LGBTIQ plus rights are concerned. For example, the law of self-determination, I don't know if that's the correct term, the Selbstbestimmungsgesetz, was something which has been hardly attacked by the Conservatives in the election campaign as something which would lead to chaos in the society and something which has to be abolished immediately. This is not going to happen. It is secured by the coalition agreement because the Social Democrats were fighting for that. That's why I'm not surprised and I'm not disappointed, because they said what their stance on these issues is. The problem is that we're facing discussions we would not necessarily have to face, as the fight is somewhere else in society as far as the protection of LGBTIQ plus people is concerned. So no, I'm not disappointed, but it's annoying that we still have these discussions with them.
Mr. Roloff, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.